Hello everybody and welcome back to another Draft League Top 10. Today I will be going into my favourite fast momentum users. Yeah, we may as well just get straight into it, I guess. Just a quick explanation if you don't really get the concept of fast momentum. It's just Pokemon that use moves like U-turn, Volt Switch, Parting Shot, which allows them to either do damage or with Parting Shot lower the opponent's offenses and then switch out into another mon either to take a hit or just so that you can gain momentum by if your opponent switches, you can gain momentum by going into something else that is effective in that matchup. So basically, like, you use a U-turn, your opponent switches something in to take whatever hit you're going for. You go for the U-turn, he takes the U-turn, and then you switch out into something that is super effective or has a good matchup against whatever mon your opponent switched in. Or you can use it to switch out a Pokemon and then switch into something that you want to take a hit from whatever was sitting in front of it. So that's basically the concept. And then obviously the fast momentum is the type of mons that do it fast. So they're the ones that are better at avoiding a hit. There is slow momentum as well, but that's obviously going to be in another video. So yeah. Number 10, we have Mienshao. One of my favourite fighting types in the game, really. It's a pretty low budget one as well. I think it's generally seen sitting around tier 3 kind of thing, so right in the middle, average. It's got a decent speed, a decent attack, average bulk, but it does have that regenerator ability, which makes it really nice because it's switching out all the time with U-turns and stuff. It gets health back that way, so you can afford it to take a hit or two, or to come in on stealth rocks and stuff like that. It's not a huge deal. It gets the ability to use knockoff as well, so your opponent can predict it to do like a U-turn or something like that, and then you can get a surprise knockoff on your opponent's item too. And because it's a fighting type, ghost types are likely to switch into it as well, so the knockoff can be quite useful there as well. Though other than that, it doesn't have a lot of coverage options. Generally having like the fighting moves, the knockoff, the U-turn, and like maybe like poison jab or something. I don't even know if it gets that, to be honest, but yeah, it's got rock slide, stone edge, stuff like that, so it's got a couple of useful coverage moves. It can hit flying types that would normally wall it, so that's something, but yeah, it doesn't have a lot of coverage. Number 9, we're looking at Alolan Persian. So it gets Parting Shot and U-turn, so it has the potential to use either of those, though generally you'll see it with the Parting Shot. Though I guess Parting Shot is also really good on a more defensively biased Alolan Persian, but I do personally like using Alolan Persian as a fast momentum. It can be used slow as well. Its Technician ability is useful for getting some more damage out of your U-turns and stuff like that as well. It can also run Hidden Power and stuff like that really effectively. It does also get the Fur Coat ability, which is better for a more defensively focused Alolan Persian, which is nice as well. But yeah, as I said, I like using it more offensively if I can. It also gets the knockoff too, so you can have those a stab knockoff as well, which is really nice. It gets that ability. So yeah, once again, you can outplay people that want to try and predict your momentum as well, which is really nice too. It has low base stats overall though. Average, very average HP defense and special defense. So its bulk isn't great. Fur Coat, it does get better defensively, but its offenses still aren't that great. So that would be the main downside of this. But if you're using it as more of a Parting Shot knockoff, getting a lot of utility out of it, so its offenses aren't necessarily as important. Number 8, we're looking at Galvantula. So the bug electric type here. Access to sticky webs on top of the Volt Switch is really nice. So you can get a sticky webs up and then everything is going to be slower than it. Well, I mean, obviously not absolutely everything, but most things. And anything that's going to avoid its webs, it's generally super effective against. So that's nice to have as well. Volt Switch also gets that stab bonus. But its only way of hitting ground types is that Hidden Power Ice doesn't really have much else. Actually, it gets Giga Drain as well, right? But still, it's I think it does. It's still not really that good against ground types overall. And it is quite often run with like a scarf or something like that, so you got to be really careful that you don't get locked into Volt Switch and he switches into a ground type, and then you basically have to hard switch and you lose all your momentum then. But yeah, something to play around there. And it's also weak to rock, so if it's switching around a lot, it's going to be taking a lot of rock chip, and that's also something to be careful about. But still a pretty cool mon, and it can be quite useful and threatening on a team. Sticky webs always has to be prepped for, so that's something to watch out for when you have a Galvantula on your team. Crobat is my next fast momentum user. Very cool mon. I like this guy. Super fast, 130 speed. There's not a whole ton of mons that are faster than that in Draft League format, and that's really nice to have. It also has some decent offensive and utility options on both sides. Like, it can defog, obviously it's weak to those rocks as well, but it can also roost. It can also be offensive on either side, especially like with access to Nasty Plot. It can be quite threatening on especially offensive side, and things like Brave Bird and stuff like that can be really offensive, really threatening physically. And so it can threaten those and you turn out into whatever your opponent wants to switch into, which is really nice. Its bulk isn't even too bad, and its offensive stats, while not the highest, they're not terrible either. They're workable, and because of its speed, a lot of the time it can afford to run things like Adamant or Modest, depending on what side you want to go. Not very often will you have to run it fully speed invested, so you can afford to put some HP in as well, which gives it some extra bulk and longevity, which is nice. It does also get that rocks weakness, as I mentioned though, so switching out too much can be detrimental to it. Luckily it does get that roost to help with that, so, or defog as well. Both help. Number 6, I'm looking at Cobalion. Like, it's a still fighting type, so it's going to catch your opponents off guard with the Volt Switch, to be honest. Like, a lot of people don't even realize this thing gets Volt Switch. I mean, as you get more experience and at a higher level, obviously people are going to realize and remember and would have used it before themselves. But it definitely can catch people off guard. Like, you wouldn't expect Cobalion to have Volt Switch. I believe he's the only sort of Justice that has momentum, so that's pretty cool to have as well. Also is greatly resistant to those Stealth Rocks 4 times. Steel resists, Fighting resists rock type moves, so also has the ability to set its own Stealth Rocks, so it can force a switch, get Stealth Rock set up, and then switch out itself. Obviously it can't hit the ground types of that Volt Switch either. It doesn't really get much to hit ground types either, and it's weak to ground type moves, so you've got to really be careful about that as well. But it does have some pretty good defensive bulk, and can be built to be threatening either specially or physically, so it's definitely a good addition to the team. I probably like this guy more than Lucario, who has the same typings, just because the momentum ability is there, and it's a bit faster. Though Lucario is still nice as well. I still prefer Cobalion, even though Cobalion's generally tiered lower. Number 5, looking at the 2 Thunderuses. So both can be really cool momentum users. Get some nice offenses, both sides for both of them really. and decent bulk as well. Not terrible at least. Their speed's pretty cool as well. They both get some decent coverage moves. Sludge Wave, Sludge Bomb, Grass Knot, Knock Off, Incinerate, I think, stuff like that. So they don't always have to run hidden powers and stuff like that, or they have multiple hidden power options. Things like Galvantula, if they're going to run hidden power, would generally be something like Ice to be able to hit those ground types easily on switches and stuff like that. Whereas these guys don't necessarily have to run that. And yeah, as I said, can hit those heavy ground types with Grass Knot, which is really nice. Though they do get the Rocks weakness as well, and I don't think they don't have the Roost options that a lot of other flying types do. So they've got to be really careful about that too. But still, some pretty cool mons to use. Definitely had some success with Sunday Eye in the past. Number 4 is Mega Beedrill. So yeah, it gets stab boost and then it gets boosted by adaptability on its U-turn. So even the U-turns can still hit very hard, especially with that 150 attack stat, which is crazy. 145 speed is really nice as well. Like that's getting up there as like the second fastest tier in Draft League. Like there's a couple of mons that are faster at 150 speed. Like the Mega Alakazam, stuff like that. But yeah, there's not much that's outrunning a Mega Beedrill. So it can run Adamant with the adaptability boost, with the massive attack stat, and the stab bonuses. Can hit really hard, which is really nice. Also does get the knockoff too, so a lot of the time this guy is gonna force switches, so you can get free knockoffs pretty easily, which is pretty cool. And then you can use that U-turn to go into something once they switch as well. So it is very frail though, so you don't really want this thing taking hits if you can help it. Unless it's like to secure kills or something like that, and you know that you're going to live, make sure you do your calcs people. And then it doesn't have a lot of coverage either. It's got the stab, the like bug type moves, the poison type moves. It's got knockoff. It's got drill run. Brick break, I think, some other moves as well, but like it still struggles in the coverage area. But luckily, I mean, it generally hits things that you need it to. It gets the drill run, so it's going to hit those steel types that would normally switch in on bug and poison moves and stuff like that. So it's not terrible coverage. It's just not the best coverage. It's still a really cool mon. Hits really hard. And it's definitely, I mean, I've had it on team, I haven't had the most success with it, but it's definitely still fun to use, and I do like it. But I like the next one more. Tornadus T, I would draft this all the time if I could, but I do like using some new stuff every now and then, so it doesn't always fit on the teams that I want to draft. But it's got Regenerator, it's got decent bulk, it's got decent offenses, it's got good speed, it's got decent coverage moves as well. It's just round a really decent mon. Can run Scarf, can run Assault Vest, can run Z moves, can run all kinds of different sets. Obviously it is Rocks weak, but the Regenerator once again helps with that, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I really like Tornadus T, and yeah, it's a really cool bird. Next up is Tapu Koko. I mean, you can't really talk about fast momentum without talking about Koko, one of the best ones in the game. It gets that stab and electric terrain boost on its Volt Switch. It's got a decent special attack and a good attack stat. But it also gets access to U-turn, so it's not walled by those ground types either. You can still get momentum out of it, which can be nice to use as well. Doesn't get the... I mean, it gets Grass Knot, so that can hit some heavy ground types as well, but yeah, doesn't necessarily get the best things to hit ground types with, or steel types for that matter either. It's super fast though, 130 tying there with the Crobat, which is nice. I get some good utility, Roost, Carmines, Defogs. Not that you ever really run this thing with a Defog, but it does get it, so it's an option. More options are always good. Yeah, so as I said, Roost, Recovery, good things like that. It's definitely a cool mon to have on the team. One of the strongest mons in Draft League format, I think. Up there with Celesteela, though. This is like one of Celesteela's best counters, so probably makes this like one of the top tier mons in Draft League format most of the time. Obviously, there are some leagues where you get stuff that would arguably be considered better than this, but this is definitely up there as a really strong contender. Only problem I really have with Coco is that it's a really bad fairy. It gets Dazzling Gleam. That's pretty much it. It doesn't get a physical fairy move to go with it. Its attack stat. It would be even better with Play Rough as a move. It could run a physical set rather than a mixed set and be pretty dang strong. But not a huge deal. It doesn't even get Moonblast, which would be a really nice fairy move for it to get. But I mean, can't be good at everything, right? So still a very cool mon, and while it's probably one of the, if not the best mon in Draft League format, it's definitely not my favorite fast momentum, which would go to Mega Manetric. It's just the goodest of boys. It's got a nice speed. It is slightly faster than that Tapu Koko, which I do like. It's got a better special offensive stat than that Tapu Koko as well. So I mean, those do really help. Once again, it doesn't really have a ton of great coverage options. It does get like Heat Wave or Flamethrower, stuff like that. Heat Wave, Overheat. Might get Heat Wave as well, I don't know. But I generally either take Overheat or Flamethrower because I don't like missing moves or the just pure damage output of Overheat is nicer for me. It does get that Intimidate, which is pretty nice. Can switch in on things and lower their attacks, and then switch out with the Volt Switch, which is hitting pretty nicely with that 135 special attack. But like it's pretty straightforward. Everyone knows what this does. It generally runs Volt Switch, a fire move, Flamethrower, or Overheat, Hidden Power Ice, or Hidden Power Grass, depending. Or, I mean, there are other hidden power options as well, obviously, depending on the team that you're facing, but those are generally the most common ones. And then you'd run either an electric move or a coverage move if you need it. Generally, an electric move is going to be your best bet, though. It's going to hit a lot of things pretty hard with that special attack and stab bonus. So, pretty easy to predict, pretty predictable on what it's going to bring each week, but still one of my favorite megas. If not my favorite mega, I don't know if I'd say it's my favorite mega, but it's definitely up there as one of my favorites. But that's for a later video, my favorite megas. I mean, I guess you know what's going to be on, what at least is going to be on the list, right? Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite fast momentum users to use. So, yeah, speedy electric types, good for Draft League. It's not. I know people say that, but it's not necessarily just the electric types. It's just having a speedy mon with good momentum that can be really useful in a draft. So, yeah, that's been my top 10 favorite fast momentum users. Leave us a comment if you've got any that you like yourself, or if you've got anything to comment about the ones I've chosen here. And thank you for watching, and we will catch you later. I think the next video is going to be on the opposite of these guys, the slow momentum users. So, thank you for watching, and I will catch you all later.